Welcome to the Local Business Insider Podcast with the Small Business Owners Alliance. This is a space where we sit down with real entrepreneurs and talk about the wins, the lessons, and the honest moments that come with running a business. I'm your host, Nicole Redenbach, small business owner, insurance broker, and founder of the Small Business Owners Alliance here in the Omaha area. Whether you're local to Nebraska or just love learning from real-world business stories, you're in the right place.
Chris Moynihan is the founder and operator of CTM Property Inspections, a Nebraska-based inspection company specializing in residential and commercial property assessments. In this episode of the SBOA podcast, we dive deep into the ways that soft skills can elevate marketing, sales, and the customer experience, especially in the technical or niche businesses like property inspection. Thanks so much, Chris, for being here. We're glad to have you on the Local Business Insider podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're excited to learn a little bit more about you and your background. And so if you could just kind of jump in, tell us a little bit more about your history and what led you to starting your company.
Sure. So my background, I worked as a commercial construction superintendent for years, and I was a residential superintendent before that. So that's typically the guy in the field building the thing. So I was in charge of quality control and safety and scheduling for a couple of big commercial contractors. And then a few years ago, an acquaintance of mine, a friend of mine, said, "Hey man, you gotta start doing home inspections." Like he's like, "It's what you're doing every day just for people." And I was like, I don't know about that. Maybe one of these days. And then I had a chance to kind of jump out and start doing my own thing. And so I took that opportunity and dove head first. And so that's how I started doing it full time. And I'm happy to do it and happy to do more of it. So it's been a lot of fun to have that steep learning curve of entrepreneurship and kind of diving out and starting my own thing. So.
That's great. Yeah. And having kind of that hands-on experience of being able to build the things first and see the inner workings, I bet has been a huge advantage to you and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Now.
So a lot of inspectors have only ever done inspections. They've never actually built the thing. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that there's always a way to fix something, there's always kind of idiosyncrasies in the building process, having that understanding and acknowledging it during the inspection, I think brings a lot of value to the table as well.
Absolutely. So if somebody's working with you and you're kind of in the early conversations of getting going, what are some of the things that you try to identify in that initial touch point before taking on a job?
So the first thing I'm looking for is like what they want out of their inspection kind of experience. Some homeowners really just want like a very basic like thumbs up, thumbs down. I've worked with investors where they literally just want an extra set of eyes on the property before they buy it. They're looking, typically in inspections, we're looking at structures, systems, and safety. And so those are like the key identifiers. And so for me, typically the first interaction, a lot of people, they've either never bought a home before or they maybe bought one home before. And so they're not necessarily even aware of what they want in an inspection. And so I have to kind of suss it out, hey, like, well, what do you want me to, you want me to look at everything? Do you want me to just look at these details? Like, what's your go-to? And like with the big investors, they're looking for like, hey, is this structurally sound? Is it going to be a good long-term investment versus a home buyer who's going to live in the home? Like they want me to look at everything and make sure that they're really going through it with a fine-tooth comb. Yeah. And so learning kind of what their expectations are for the inspection and what their long-term expectations are for the report really helps me understand kind of what level they're looking for, and I can help them price things accordingly. So.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I think you're right. And getting to know what their experience level is, not just what they think they want, but maybe understanding what their background is and where they're coming from so that you can kind of help guide them through your recommendation of what makes sense too. How do you think kind of taking that time to really learn a little bit more about your customer and what they're hoping to get out of it, how do you think that helps build stronger relationships with your customers?
Well, I think that the goal is that they have to be able to trust me and trust the report, right? And so for me, it's an opportunity to build that relationship of trust and kind of mutual understanding of what we're looking for. And that helps me move things forward. My goal obviously is to have them as a repeat referral client, have them come back to me in the future if ever they want to. And for example, that happened to me this week. I did an inspection for a guy on the buyer side and he said, well, hey, turned to his real estate agent, we're doing a pre-listing inspection on our house, right? Like, well, hey, next week you want to do our pre-listing when we get things empty? And I was like, absolutely, let's knock it out of the park. And that's the opportunities that we're really looking for, is to build that long-term understanding and that long-term confidence in the product that you're providing.
Yeah, and you're right. That trust is so important in any kind of service-based business to make sure that, you're hiring a professional in an industry that you probably don't know much about, and that's
Right.
why you're hiring a professional. And so, yeah, you got to take people at their word a lot of times because you don't know enough as the client to ask the right questions sometimes. So that's huge. So we talked about like building those relationships with the clients, but how do you handle it when you're building new relationships with networking partners or referral partners, and how does that kind of differ in your approach to that? Because I know you've been doing a lot of that as you've kind of been growing your business initially here.
Yeah, so it's the worst. I'm very introverted kind of by nature, and so for me to like go, a lot of time I'll go visit open houses, and it's a good opportunity to meet real estate agents, and they're a huge part of my referral base. And I hate it so much, but at the same time, like it's super valuable and it's a good opportunity. A lot of real estate professionals are very people.
Yes.
They're typically more extroverted. And so it's a good chance to kind of play off their energy a little bit and help them, kind of gain confidence in me. And I show them my reporting software and I show them like, hey, here's how I'm different. Here's what's up. But I think that there's great value in putting yourself out there. And I know that that's a like kind of generic thing to say. But a lot of people, once you start putting yourself out there, like they accept that, hey, like this guy's out here hustling, this person's out here hustling, and they're hungry, they want the work, they want the opportunities, and so really they most of the time they'll give you that opportunity to prove yourself and make yourself available to help them, and the opportunities keep rolling in.
That's great. I love your transparency around that as somebody who is pretty naturally introverted too, and that's been something. Being an insurance agent, same thing. You got to go out and talk to people. You got to build those relationships. So it's been a skill I've had to kind of stretch myself. So I understand that. But I think
I'm happiest alone in the house before people get there. And then I'm like, okay, we got to talk to people. All right, let's do it. So it's a different kind of dynamic.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, it's important to be aware of your own strengths and your comfort zone and where you work best. But I imagine a lot of the work that you do is kind of solitary work as you're doing the inspections and that sort of thing. But yeah, as business owners, we've got to stretch ourselves and do all the things.
Yep. Absolutely.
Absolutely. How would you say that taking the time to do that networking there, or like you've been doing with us at the Small Business Owners Alliance at Chapter 4, how would you say that that's helped grow your business, whether it's those one-on opportunities or at a broader scale in groups?
Well, I think there's something to be said for the value of human connection. So, like, I could go out and purchase a list of all of the real estate agents in town and blast them an email, but most of them get so much email fatigue that they're just going to go delete, and it's gone. But I think there's great value in the human connection of like, hey, there's that guy that I met at that open house. Like, oh yeah, like where's his card? Like, where's his number? I think that there's a great value in having that face-to-face connection before you ever have that business interaction. And I think it's the same with the SBOA where we get into a room like, hey, I'm having this problem. Like, has anybody else run into this? Yeah. And like the value of learning from somebody else's previous mistakes or previous like victories is phenomenal. There's huge potential in that. And I think that that's something that even as you ramp and scale up your business, everybody who's ever scaled a business has run into the same headaches of, well, hey, my bank or my insurance or this is changing or that's what about my first employee? Like, do I, can we 1099 them? Do we want to 1099 them? Do we bring them in as a W-2? Who's going to handle licensing cost if we do? Like all of these things are things that get covered. And like you're starting to, I've heard it at the SBOA a couple times. We're like, well, hey, like when you get to that point, like call us and we'll come help you with that.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for having those connections set up before it's a problem, because when it does become an issue or it does become a problem, then you have the people and the tools to effectively manage that change. I think there's a great value in that, and that's where groups like SBOA come in handy, because it's not just like, oh yeah, like when somebody buys a house from the group, like hopefully they use me as the inspector, right? That'd be great. But if I need insurance, like I'll come talk to you, or I'll go, if hey, I need somebody to talk to me about human resources, like let me go talk to the folks from Ignite and let's go ahead and get that rolling. And there's, I think, great value in that, just having that relationship built beforehand before it becomes a problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can become a big time saver to not have to then, when you get to that point, stop what you're doing in your business to do all the research and get ready there when you've already got that network built up. And then, yeah, also not just for your own business, but be a connector of people too, and all the other people you meet. Now you've got that relationship with somebody else to solve a problem they might have, and they remember you in turn. So, yeah, that's wonderful. Being in the business that you're in and with your construction background too, how do you feel, like, what are you seeing in our industry as far as customer service and kind of the needs and expectations that consumers are wanting from those in the construction or home improvement industry? Do you see that that's an issue for other companies? Or
Yeah, so like construction, we unfortunately live in like a weird bubble in construction, because we're kind of isolated from the greater business world, if that makes sense. And so when we have opportunities, for example, I built Class A office space for a long time, so really fancy offices for doctors and lawyers and folks like that. And so, and then, there I am, kind of rough and tumble. I was not at this point as polished as I am now, which I'm not even that polished now. But there's something to be said for being able to make those connections. And I think that there's kind of a breakdown in between how we communicate with customers and how we kind of chase business. There's this idea out there that like contractors are out there to build the cheapest thing possible for the highest price. And I think that there are definitely guys out there that's their business model. They get the cheapest subcontractors they can, and they blow through a ton of them. But I think that there are still builders out there that are doing a great job. The problem is connecting people to them. And that's where, going back to what you just said, there's a great value in being able to connect people to the right person who can accomplish what they want with their product, with their kind of end result. In construction, it's hard too, because a lot of the time buyers typically don't know enough about the trade to be able to effectively communicate what it is that they want. I want a new roof. Well, like, do you want 3-tab? Do you want architectural shingles? Do you want dimensional shingles? Do you want, metal roof? Do you want standing seam? Like, let's talk through. And like a good construction professional should be able to sit down and walk you through that process. Some are much better at it than others. But that's where, like, as a buyer or as like a consumer of construction goods, it does take a kind of a steep learning curve to be able to understand, hey, this is what I actually want, and being able to effectively communicate that to your contractor in a way that they can bid it accurately so that you're getting what you want out of the end of the process. And a good contractor will be able to do that for you, but there's a big breakdown a lot of the time. The contractors are fantastic at what they do, but they're not good communicators on what products are available. And there's people that fill that gap. There's interior designers, and there's folks that fill that gap a little bit. But I think that's probably the biggest breakdown on the homeowner side, dealing with contractors on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's great to put it into that there are people that can fill that void too. Like you said, interior designers and that sort of thing. Even sometimes realtors, if you're looking to get your home ready to sell, or if you just are planning to purchase a home and know that you're going to need some pre-move-in kind of work done. But yeah, I know that in talking with a lot of my clients and others I network with, sometimes that customer service piece is missing sometimes from certain industries, and the communication is so key. And I know that in our talks, it sounds like that's something that you really value and prioritize, is that customer service and communication. What are some soft skills that you feel like are typically kind of undervalued, if you will, in technical trades like property inspection, and what do you kind of do to change the way you approach that to kind of fill that gap that's currently there?
Yeah, so there's a joke in the industry, like, what do you call a group of introverts on the construction team? We call them the engineering department. And so, like, where you have this group of guys that maybe don't communicate well, I think that is a huge soft skill that is underserved. The other thing is the ability to write clear, effective communication. I think are two of probably the biggest soft skills that I've ever served. So I was a history major. I was not a construction management major.
Okay.
I was not, like, my background, I started off pushing a shovel for $6 an hour, and then I worked my way up the chain. And so like that was my background. But as a history major, like, research and writing was obviously a huge part of my job and like my degree. And so the ability to write like a clear and concise narrative when I'm writing my reports and stuff is a huge deal. Being able to write effective comments on my reports is a soft skill that people don't necessarily think about. So like, I have talked multiple times to people who, they're a fantastic contractor. I have a guy who does concrete, and he's like Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, he does a fantastic job. The guy cannot write a clear invoice or a clear scope of work to save his life. I mean, if you put a gun to his head, he could not do it. And so he has to hire somebody to write a lot of that stuff for him. The other thing that I say is a soft skill that is undervalued is being able to speak more than one language. I speak Spanish, and in the construction industry, that has paid me infinitely more than I ever deserved to. But it's something that once you learn it in a second language, particularly if you're going to work in construction, Spanish, it opens up your opportunities infinitely. There's so many more opportunities being bilingual and being able to work with multiple teams across that language barrier.
Yeah.
And it really does just open up all the opportunities. I'm one of 2 bilingual home inspectors here in Omaha, and it's me and one other guy. And so if he's booked out, it's me, and if I'm booked out, it's him. And so being able to serve that community is something that's also kind of positions me uniquely kind of in the industry, because there's just not people that have that skill. And like language acquisition, I don't think is one of those things that people necessarily look at when they're thinking about like what's a good way to get more opportunities.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's huge. And I think that there's definitely a large population that is underserved without having somebody who's bilingual.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely an important void that you help fill in that. So when we've talked a little bit about like the importance of communicating when it comes to creating quotes or presentations and what the customer needs and kind of valuing that. So in sales or proposals, obviously you'll sometimes get pushback, whether it be price or the timeline or something like that. How do you use your soft skills to kind of help ease the customer's resistance to that without seeming salesy or pushy?
Sure. So first thing, when I worked as a general contractor, there's people who have opinions about this subject. Some people are like, well, there's always more work. Like, just ditch them, move on to the next thing. But me, I always try to take a tack of understanding. Like, well, hey, you said that you have this other quote. It's significantly cheaper than mine. Like, do you mind me asking like what they're including in that? Do they include this? Do they include that? Like, what are they going to be able to provide you with this, that, or the other? Okay, cool. And that understanding their quote, and oftentimes like, hey, they may just be trying to get me down on my price, and that's fine. But ultimately, like, I know what my bottom line is, and I know what my inspections cost.
Yep.
And so I'm like, hey, you know what? Like, I love that they are going to be cheaper than me, and you know what? I wish you the best of luck. If you ever need an inspection in the future, give me a call by all means.
Yeah.
And literally, I leave it there. I think that I've had 2 or 3 times where they've called me back to go back and do the work, and I'm happy to. Let's go ahead and schedule that. Here's your inspection, and I'll see you on Tuesday, whatever it is. Sometimes it's hey, they are legitimately going to go with somebody else, and that's fine. Ultimately, my thing is there's an abundance of work out there. There's an abundance of opportunities out there, and if somebody doesn't want to work with me for whatever reason, whether it's price, whether it's personality, whatever, I'm going to give them that opportunity. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're looking for, and I think that there's like a value of like forgiveness there, where it's like, hey, you're not wasting my time. You wanted to get a good price. You wanted to get what you're looking for. Great, that person's going to be able to provide that for you, and go do it. Ultimately, I don't want anybody to ever feel pressured or uncomfortable working for me, because we talked a little bit about building that relationship of trust, and that I think it's shattered the instant that you start like trash talking your competitor or like trash talking somebody else. I think that it looks petty. It looks like a garbage person. It makes you look like somebody that I know I don't want to work with somebody who's going to trash talk their competition. And so I don't ever want to do that to somebody else. I'm like, oh yeah, home standards, they do great reports. Oh yeah, Wrench, he does great. Like go work with them. They're obviously going to do a great job. If you ever have a need in the future, by all means, give me a shout. And like, I run into that all the time at open houses. I walk up to the house and there's a sign out, pre-inspected by whoever, and I'm like, man, they beat me to it. But at the same time, like, I'm like, hey, like, who are you using? Are they ever busy? Do you ever have a time that they weren't available? Hey, I want to be your guy in that situation. You want to keep using them all the time? Great. If not, here's my card, and give me a call in the future. And it gives it like a really low pressure, and it's an opportunity for us to, again, like, we're all in the same industry. Like, it doesn't benefit anybody to trash talk each other.
Yeah, so I think taking the high road says a lot about who you are, and looking at it as collaboration, and how can you still fill a need for that person. Like you said, if their go-to is busy or whatever the case may be, how can you still fill that need without feeling like it has to be a cutthroat competition.
There will come a time that you don't want to use them anymore. And when that time comes, give me a call.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Nope. That's great. And I think, especially like we talked a little bit about being a little more introverted. I know sometimes that can be hard to overcome, to put yourself out there. But I think those one-on-one relationships where it's a little easier to have that conversation and build that trust goes a long way in that too, of that kind of planting that seed for that future. What would you say has been something that's been a little bit harder for you to overcome as a soft skill? Was there anything that, you said you started pushing a shovel and that was kind of how you worked your way up, and obviously with history major, you weren't really probably talking a lot about business.
The people that I liked were dead. Long dead. Well, for me, like just overcoming that fear, and I don't know if it's initially a soft skill, that fear of failure. There's a book called The 7 Primal Questions, and one of the things is like, am I successful? And so like being able to be like, I am successful. I will be successful in this. I think that it's absolutely a soft skill to be able to learn that confidence. And the way, you ultimately do it by doing the thing, right? Every time that you succeed, you say, okay, I did it. I can do it again. Yeah. And as a small business owner, particularly, like there's, I think, a huge barrier where people have that fear of failure, and being able to overcome that fear and kind of bet on myself has been something that up until obviously very recently was not something I was willing to do. And so I do think it's a developable skill of developing self-confidence in your industry. I think is infinitely huge and something that every small business owner struggles with. Yeah. We've talked about it in SBOA before, like the imposter syndrome of like, am I doing the thing? Like, am I able to do this? Will I be able to do it full time? What happens if I, and that's where I think that comes into play.
It does. Yeah. And I don't know that I've talked to any small business owner who at some point hasn't felt that imposter syndrome or fear of failure. And yeah, it's really something that you gotta dive in with both feet sometimes and push yourself forward, and that's great. And I think that level of confidence sometimes just comes with practice too, and fake it till you make it sort of thing. But
there are people out there that are like, I'm the best. I'm like, I don't know how you guys do that. You guys kill it. Keep it up. But yeah, it is. There's definitely days where it's a struggle.
Absolutely. So in such a technical industry that you have, where you've got to know so much about so many different things when you're evaluating a property, what's something you kind of do to help make sure that you're staying on top of changes in codes or the industry as a whole? And we talk about investing in your soft skills, yes, but what's something that you do in your industry to invest in your technical skills?
I'm always looking to learn new things. So like I've got my code book on my desk and I'm reading through the code book. If I don't know, particularly if I don't know why something is written a certain way, I'll go and research it. So like, hey, I'm seeing this start to pop up on, pre-inspection reports or whatever. Like, let's go take a look at why it's written that way. And then the other thing too is I'm always looking for additional certification. I'm always looking for additional information. And so if there's a class that I can take or a home show that I can go to and I can talk to the subject matter expert on that, I'm going to go and talk to that guy. Back when I was in construction, I had the opportunity to go to a lot of different schools. And so my boss would call me up and be like, hey, man, we need somebody that can go look at mold. Do you want to go to mold licensing class? I was like, yes, absolutely. Let's go to the class. I had another time they were like, hey, we need a safety guy for the company. We need you to go to a week-long safety class to learn about all the different OSHA standards for the construction industry. Yeah. Cool, let's do it. Hey, we need you to go to another week-long class, and you're going to take a week off and go to a hotel and live. And yeah, absolutely, let's do the thing. And like taking those opportunities, I've never met somebody who regretted learning more. And so every time that I had the opportunity to go to any kind of formal training, I took it. And then now in my own business, I'm like, hey, I want to be better at doing this kind of inspection. Let me go find somebody who specializes in that, and let me see if I can shadow them for a day, or let me see if I can, learn where they learned from. What certification does that guy have? Let me go see if they have like a class that I can take, or let me go see if and that's where I really started to work my way through the different services that I offer and say, okay, yeah, I've already done this, but I want to make sure that I'm doing it to the best level possible. What certifications or what classes can I take or who can I talk to make sure that I'm giving that level of service? And that's how I've always approached it, is you get paid for being good at what you do. You get paid well for being the best at it and having the certifications to back that up. And so that's my kind of process in that, is finding those opportunities to learn and then just taking advantage of them.
That's a great point, is that sometimes like business owners will struggle talking about pricing and how to figure out what's the sweet spot of what are customers willing to pay, but how am I valuing my time enough? And I think what a lot of people don't realize is well, your home inspection may take a few hours or however long it takes you. The price that they're paying isn't just for the hours you were there on property. It's not only your commute time and the overhead of running the business, but it's all of those pieces of training and different experience opportunities you've had along the way to help you be able to do a good job in that short of amount of time, and be efficient at it.
Yeah, there's the joke about George Washington where he was a surveyor. That was his profession. And so he, a friend was disagreeing with his neighbor about a property line, and they hired George Washington to go out. And so he went out and, did his thing and surveyed and put the stake in the ground, and, said, there it is. And the guy said, well, give me your invoice and itemize it out, please. And so he said, $1 iron stake, whatever the amount, $99, knowing where to put the stake. And it's just like, that's the thing, is like, there's a great value in bringing, you're bringing tools, you're bringing insurance, you're bringing overhead, but then really you're bringing your experience to the table. And that's where the value is in your experience and in knowing how to do the job that you're hired for.
Yeah. So in the last several years, since COVID, especially, I think when the housing market got so crazy there for a while, a lot of people were waiving inspections. And I think in doing so, they didn't always realize just what all risk they were taking on by doing that. But paying somebody who does this for a living, who sees these situations regularly, knows what to look at and do it in an efficient manner, can really save thousands in the long run.
Yeah, well, I tell people it's a question of like how many houses you look at, right? So like if you're a buyer, you're really looking at maybe the 5 houses that you're most interested in. Mm-hmm. If you're a realtor, you're looking at maybe 20 houses that you have on the market on any given day, and then you multiply that times years of experience, etc. Like as a home inspector, I'm looking at 2 to 3 houses a day, every day, for weeks on end, times however long the year is. Like there's a lot of opportunities to look at different things, different houses. Hey, why was this constructed this way? Well, they were doing it that way from 75 to 80. Why was there asbestos and thing? Well, asbestos ran the world for 30 years, and people loved it. And it was a great product at the time. Mm-hmm. So like knowing that your home inspector has seen potentially hundreds of houses, if not thousands of houses, and has seen how all of them kind of work. There's a great value in that, and bringing that knowledge and expertise to the table of the building practices, the construction practices, the historical construction practices. All of that all comes into play when you start looking at houses.
That makes sense. No, that's great. So if somebody is either buying a house, or maybe they just want to have, their existing home inspected because maybe they were one of those that had waived it at some point and they decide they want to learn more about your services and work with you, what's really kind of the best way for them to get started?
You can check out my website. I've got my links to all my socials on there. So it's ctminspections.com. My phone number's on there. You can call me, text me, pretty much anytime. I tell people I'm the guy on the other end of the phone, so you're not going to get like a scheduler or like a random voice. Like it's me. So if you reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, I'm also happy to answer questions there. And I'm also happy to answer questions just kind of generally about construction stuff. I've had people text me and be like, hey, is this a thing? Is this a problem? And I'm like, no, that's fine. You're good. Or I can say like, well, you should probably get that looked at. Like get that evaluated by a qualified professional. And here's some people that you can use for that. But I'm always happy to answer those kinds of questions. And I'm also happy to answer just realtor questions. If you're a realtor and you have an open house or whatever, and you want me to just kind of come out and put eyes on it, like I'm happy to do that. That's something that I'm more than willing to do.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate your time and being here on the Local Business Insider podcast. We'll put all of the social links and website links for Chris in our show notes. So please, if you don't already, give him a like and a follow. And don't forget to share this episode and subscribe to stay in touch with us as we have more local interviews with businesses coming up your way.